Before we begin, a huge thank you to my newest Patreon supporter, Christopher Johnston. And a huge thank you to Pinions Media for creating the new logo and title card.
Stop playing with that thing.
I've just got to adjust this.
Give me the sequence calculations. Now!
They're already done.
I wonder if it will be raining.
Stand by.
Herr Hitler!
Ja, was ist los? Ich habe keine Zeit, hier rumzustehen.
Ja, ich verstehe.
Did you find him?
Hitler is out of the way.
Congratulations, Professor. With Hitler removed...
Time will tell. Sooner or later. Time will tell.
Greetings, one and all! KayWhy is the name, and today we're looking at my favorite video game of all time, Command & Conquer Red Alert. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that Red Alert is the best game ever made. There's several others that I would put forth as my candidate for best game ever before Red Alert. But as far as what game means the most to me personally, with no other factors considered, this is it. Red Alert holds the most special place in my heart. It's the game I played the most as a kid, particularly with my dad, and it's where my love of C&C and strategy games as a whole began. Originally started as an expansion for the original game, it was retooled partway through development to become a full game in its own right. So if it looks similar to the original, that's because a lot of the assets are carried over. But make no mistake, this is no mere repackaging of Command & Conquer, no. It is a full-fledged game in its own right. But what is it about this game that separates it from the original and even elevates it above the rest? At least for me. Let's dive in and find out. Unlike the original game, the opening of Red Alert is a traditional intro cinematic, giving context for the world and story you're about to enter. After the conclusion of World War II, Albert Einstein uses a machine known as a chronosphere to go back in time and erase erase the world's most infamous mustache from existence. This prevents the Second World War as we know it and all of the atrocities that came with it from happening. However, this had some unintended consequences. Given that Russia in this timeline was never invaded by the very fine men of the German army in the 40s, Joseph Stalin was able to build the Soviet army without any resistance. On a tip from his familiar-looking advisor, he decides to invade Europe, intending to bring the whole continent under the banner of the USSR, thus kicking off the game. The intro itself is one of my favorites in all of gaming, if not my favorite, and it's set to one of the most kick-ass songs ever composed, Hell March. It's also a good indicator of the game's tone compared to the original. Command & Conquer, or Tiberian Dawn as it's unofficially called, was a 90s sci-fi romp, with the focus split between the main conflict unfolding and the study of Tiberium. Red Alert, on the other hand, is focused exclusively on the war between the Soviets and the different nations of Europe who have banded together to resist Stalin's invasion, calling themselves the Allies. Every mission, every cutscene, and every character is solely focused on the warfront, whether it be the shifting front lines or the latest superweapon designed to make winning the war much easier. In essence, this is a gritty Cold War B-movie, right down to the giant Tesla coils. Except these aren't set decorations, they're the Soviets' major base defense. Remember the Obelisk of Light? Yeah, basically that, except the obelisk only showed up a few times throughout the main Tiberian Dawn campaign. Tesla coils, on the other hand, are far more prevalent, showing up as early as the first mission. The Allied equivalent is the gap generator, which provides a regenerating fog of war around it. It's worthless against the AI, but it does make the Soviet campaign a bit trickier since it's not as easy to keep an eye on enemy defensive lines as long as they're alive. That's not mentioning the basic defenses such as flame towers, pillboxes, turrets, SAM sites, AA guns, and giant trapdoor spiders. Wait, that's not in the game.
With all these improved defenses, you might be wondering, how hard is it to crack open an enemy base? Well, thankfully, due to the faster economy, it's easier than in the original game.
Since Tiberium has yet to land on Earth, the main resource of choice is ore. Just ore. What kind of ore? Good question. Maybe it's ore, I don't know. But what I do know is that since it doesn't hurt infantry, it's able to show up in several more places without worry of how it will impact the gameplay, thus allowing you to place more refineries, pump out more ore trucks, rake in more cash, and spend it all on more tanks.
Tanks! Build more tanks!
Of course, this time around, it's not just ground units you'll be spending your cash on. In addition to expanding on air units with the addition of fixed-wing aircraft as buildable units, this time the war goes on the high seas. Red Alert was one of the first strategy games to incorporate naval combat, and even went so far as to incorporate submarines. In the base game, the Allies have the clear advantage, as they not only have more naval units, but all of them fulfill a specific purpose and can cause serious pain against ground and air units, while the Soviet submarine can only attack other naval units. This is rectified in one of the expansions, but we'll get there later. Of course, this is offset by the Soviets having an edge on land and in the air, though the existence of light tank spam arguably makes the ground advantage up for debate.
I'm sure you're wondering, KayWhy, are the engineers still here? Can I still cheese the enemy by loading up an APC, rolling it into their base, and capturing 5 buildings at once? Well, you see...
After seeing how broken they were in the original game, engineers in Red Alert were smacked with the nerf bat. No longer can they capture a healthy structure in an instant. Instead, the target building must be at red health. If it's at yellow or green health, the engineer will just damage the structure. On paper, this sounds like a decent idea by encouraging different strategies while allowing the player to use the capture mechanic if they so choose. In practice, however, it just slows things to a crawl for the capture hound, so most of the time it's better to just delete your enemies from existence. There's also the strong possibility of accidentally destroying a structure that you need to capture, so that's a whole other can of frustration. It's no wonder that this mechanic was removed in future games, at least for single player, and other methods were tried to get around the instant capture issue. Of course, this is offset by some fun new infantry to play with, mostly for the Allies. For starters, we have the Spy. While he can't attack anything, he can't be detected by the enemy, for the most part, and can infiltrate enemy buildings. Normally this just comes in the form of extra information, such as how much money the enemy has, but many missions in the Allied campaign revolve around getting him into a specific building, sometimes with mission-specific effects. These are some of the best, as you have to navigate him around Soviet patrols to get to his objective. Now yes, I did say that he can't be detected, but I also said, for the most part. The one exception is the goodest boy in the whole Soviet Union, the attack dog. They can only attack infantry, but if they get their paws on a hostile target, it's a one-bite kill, and they're the only units that can sniff out spies. This makes them invaluable as a defensive unit and a major obstacle on infantry-based missions. And of course, we have the return of the commando unit. However, where the original game introduced the concept of the commando, Red Alert perfected it. Rather than being a faceless unit with a unique set of lines, Red Alert's commando unit is a full-fledged character. Meet Tanya Adams, a mercenary who volunteered to fight for the Allied forces. Wielding akimbo pistols and pockets full of C4, she's functionally identical to the classic commando, right down to the awesome one-liners.
That's all you got? Let's rock! Cha-ching! Chill on this! Cha-ching! I'm there! This is bye-bye!
Some people had their first experience with a badass female video game character with Metroid Samus Aran. Others had Tomb Raider's Lara Croft. But I had Tanya Adams in all of her explosive glory. Another thing that sets her apart from the commando is the fact that her survival is essential to mission success. This hammers home the idea that she is her own character, rather than one of many different people fulfilling the commando role. Red Alert also manages to spice things up when it comes to mission objectives. While Tiberian Dawn had rescue missions and tasked you with capturing a specific structure once in a while, most missions in one way or another boiled down to flattening the enemy as quickly as possible for optimal mission success. Red Alert shakes up the formula considerably in a few different ways. For starters, rather than having one objective per mission, you'll often be given a set of objectives that must be completed in a particular order, such as capturing a radar dome before launching an amphibious assault, or infiltrating a structure prior to flattening the enemy. Other times, you'll be placed in an escort mission, tasked with escorting a set of units from one end of the map to the other. Sometimes you'll have control of them, and sometimes you won't be able to build a base. In fact, baseless missions are more common this time around, pushing your tactical skills to their limits. Most of these missions even take place underground or in expensive tunnel networks, something rarely seen in the RTS landscape. These missions feel less like a traditional RTS and more like a top-down dungeon crawler with machine guns, but that's far from a bad thing. In fact, the sheer variety on display helps making each mission stand out. Rarely do you feel as if your current mission is the last one done bigger. Every mission is unique in its own special way, thus keeping the gameplay feeling fresh right up until the end. By the way, did you catch that clock in the corner? I hope you did, because some of these missions are timed. Sometimes it's a countdown until mission failure, sometimes it's how long you'll need to defend a certain position, and sometimes it's how long you have until the mission critical escorts show up. Whatever the case, the timers keep you on your toes and force you to think in the moment. That said, they're fairly generous, and most of the time it won't quite come down to the wire. In most cases, it feels more thematic than truly challenging. Personally, I prefer it this way, as I genuinely enjoy having space to think through my strategies, but I also appreciate a good thematic motivator. It certainly beats the alternative where the fastest route is a race down to the wire where one tiny little fuck-up results in a game over. My friend RandomBystanderHere just had to suffer that exact thing in Banjo-Kazooie, so he can tell you how painful a tight timer really is.
It's so fun!
Yeah, you'll need the Iron Curtain for that, buddy. Oh shit, I forgot to explain what that is. The super weapons this time around are more unique and supportive in nature. The Soviets field the aforementioned Iron Curtain, which can make a single unit immune to damage for a short period of time. The Allies, on the other hand, get the Chronosphere, which can teleport a single vehicle to another point on the map for a short period of time. They're cool, but their single target uses mean they're ultimately situational in their usage. Still, when used properly, they can make quite a difference, and they provide a nice starting point for future Red Alert games to improve upon. Each side also gets access to a nuclear missile silo, but it's ultimately lackluster. You're better off just using tanks. But hey, the fun doesn't stop in the main campaign. Red Alert also had not one, but two expansions. The first one, Counter-Strike, was a mission pack much like Covert Ops, but occasionally it throws in a mission with some wild changes for fun, and it's fun every single time. Then the Aftermath comes, and it brings with it some shiny new toys. For starters, remember the Chronosphere? Well, they put that on a tank that can teleport itself without ever going back to where it was. It's called the Chrono Tank, and it's a fantastic unit. They also get access to the Mechanic, who hills and billies his way into relevance by keeping your vehicles in tip-top shape at no cost, no matter where on the field they are. The Soviets, on the other hand, bring the fight to Navy with the missile sub, which finally allows the Soviets to shoot things from the sea other than naval units.
But that's not all. They also take the Tesla coil on the move with the Shock Trooper and Tesla tank. You know, just in case the game wasn't electrifying enough. And finally, the Mad Tank, also known as the Mutually Assured Destruction Tank, also known as Earthquake in a Can, also known as what the f***, why is literally every building in my base suddenly hurting like Kevin Owens after being tossed from the top of a steel cage? Both expansions were compiled into a single expansion for the PlayStation release, simply titled Red Alert Retaliation. This version also came with new cutscenes to accompany the missions, which were exclusive to the PlayStation until they were packaged with the remastered edition. In the end though, I think it's easy to see why I love this game so much. It took everything Tiberian Dawn introduced and perfected it. This was the game for me as a kid. It's what really got me into gaming in the first place, and was the first of many things that sparked my interest in game development, voice acting, and live-action acting. I'm closing in on having played this game for 30 years, and I don't see myself stopping anytime soon. So, to answer the question, Kay, why should I play Command & Conquer Red Alert? Because it improved on everything that preceded it, and set the stage for an incredible future.
Apologies for this video taking so long, but real life just kind of hit me all at once. Never happened to you? Happened to me. So, there you go. My next couple of videos are going to be a return to my Half-Life playthrough. That way I can have some content rolling around on a regular basis, so that I can take the time that I need to make these reviews as polished as possible. But when KayWhy Should I Play returns, it will be under the Tiberian sun. But for now, it's all there is and there ain't no more. I will see you next time. Commander, you've reached the end of the video. The names you see on screen right now are my wonderful supporters on Patreon. If you would like to join their ranks, there's a link in the description below where you can support the channel for as little as $1 a month. But please, only do so if you are comfortable. Otherwise, you can subscribe to the channel and ring the bell so that you can get notified the moment a new video releases. If nothing else though, just you being here is greatly appreciated. Thank you.